In this video, we're going to explore how to use Hyperdocs for learning. Some of the benefits of teaching with Hyperdocs include fewer lectures and more student exploration. This is going to be really helpful to those of us who are working in distance learning because you won't have to spend 15 minutes of synchronous learning time just talking to students about what you want them to know. You're going to have the chance to build in different opportunities for them to explore the concept or the skill that you want them to master. This also gives you more time to interact with your students. Hyperdocs are very flexible and adaptable. You can add multimodal content, including images, videos, audio recording, and text. And it's very simple to add accommodation options to your Hyperdoc. If I'm the gen ed teacher, I might create one for my lesson and then make a copy that I share with my special ed co-teacher. Then my co-teacher can add in any of the accommodations that students need in order to meet their IEP. When you're designing the learning for your students, you want to keep these design elements in mind. Number 1, use dark, cool colors to reduce eye strain. We're all spending a lot more time looking at screens than we're used to, so every little bit is going to help. Number 2, avoid greens and reds to help any colorblind students. Number 3, give students a visual cue with simple images. So in the example that you're looking at here, the picture of the 2 children at the beach at the top is actually the same image that is on the mentor text. So that helps students know that they're in the right place because they're seeing that image in their assignment and in the text that they're working with. I've also given some simple visual cues with the emojis that are attached to each one of the tables. So for example, the target for our learning objective and then the light bulb for our warm-up. Number 4, use the Tavani lesson cycle as your guide. Even though we're in distance learning, we still want to use all of those great ELA teacher moves to help our students with our reading and writing tasks. Number 5, build in opportunities for students to interact during asynchronous and synchronous learning. So in this example, this Hyperdoc is actually intended as a small group assignment. So I put our discussion question in the comments, and then each member of the group was able to respond by replying to that comment here on the sidebar. This is great to do during synchronous time or during asynchronous time to keep your students engaged and on track with the assignment. And if any of my students are absent and they need to catch up, they can always jump into the comments to get help from the other people in your group. And finally, number 6, don't panic. It's just docs. You don't have to learn a new app or a new program in order to make one of these for your classes. So how do I make my own Hyperdocs? First of all, you want to use a template, and I'm going to show you the Tavani lesson cycle template in just a moment. Secondly, be sure to build in interaction, add multimedia, and offer choice. Hyperdocs are a great place to try to manage choices for students, and I'm going to show you an example in just a moment that includes choice. And finally, don't overdo it. This is a really important time for us to focus in on the essential learning. What do my students need to know in order to master that objective? And what parts of my lesson are just nice to know that I probably need to eliminate? You don't need a Hyperdoc for every lesson, and you don't have to do this alone. So remember, because this is a Google Doc, you can share your Hyperdoc with the other members of your PLC so that you can collaborate on it together. There's always someone who's really good at making warm-ups or coming up with journal prompts. Or maybe you have someone on your PLC who's really good at finding that perfect mentor text for your lesson. You might also have someone in your PLC who really knows what's trending in pop culture or in entertainment that would help students to connect with the lesson. We're going to look at the Tavani lesson cycle template next so that we can start making our own Hyperdocs for our students. This is our Tavani Hyperdoc template. Teachers, if you want to access a copy of this, I'm going to put the link into the show notes. So we begin with that lesson objective, and if you're not sure where to start or how to write a really effective lesson objective, be sure to check out the expanded curricular units for some guidance. That first step is going to be some kind of warm-up or student engagement exercise or mini lesson that introduces the concept or the skill that you're trying to hit with this lesson. Now, I've labeled mine step 1, step 2 to give students a very clear roadmap as to how to engage with the work. But it may help your kids to label yours day 1, day 2, or Monday, Tuesday, Monday asynchronous, Tuesday asynchronous, just to again give them a roadmap for how to engage with the work. The second step is student-centered work time. So what is the actual task that students are supposed to read or write or interact with to help them learn and practice that concept or skill? And what should they be thinking about or focusing on as they are reading or thinking about the mentor text? Step 3 is going to be some kind of hinge activity that moves students to a deeper understanding of the learning through some kind of task that's aligned to the rigor of the standard. This might be a close reading exercise, it might be a revising and editing activity, they might be doing some kind of sentence imitation or a collaborative small group discussion, something where they're applying or demonstrating what they've learned in this lesson. And then step 4 is the debrief and the reflection or the exit slip. So students are going to share their thinking about what they've learned through this Hyperdoc lesson. Now, I know that this has 4 steps on it, but just because the template has 4 steps doesn't mean your lesson has to have 4 steps. In fact, the Hyperdoc lesson that we're going to look at in just a moment actually has 6 steps in the learning. So just because you have 4 steps in the template doesn't mean that yours has to have 4 steps, as long as you're moving students through those 4 parts of the lesson cycle.
If you've created Hyperdocs that were successful with your students, we would love to hear from you. Drop a link in the comments to showcase your work.